internal documents obtained by CBC News reveal a proposal for a massive new mobilization by Canada's military. They show the Department of National Defence is making preparations to take on hundreds of thousands of reservists and citizen soldiers. The country's top soldier describes the proposal as a work in progress and one that will potentially be presented to the federal government in the coming months. The CBC's defense correspondent Murray Brewster is on the story for us and joins us now from Ottawa. So Murray, where is this proposal coming from? And it certainly sounds very ambitious.
Well, it is an ambitious proposal, and it comes out of the NATO summit of 2024, where NATO was basically telling all its members to be ready in one capacity or another to fight some kind of conventional conflict if it happens. And it is.
Hello everyone, another edition of the On Our Market YouTube channel where we usually talk about food, but this time again we're going to be talking about Canadian sovereignty. Now, this is just breaking news apparently today that the Canadian Armed Forces is calling for the building up of 300,000 reservists. And my question to everybody today is, do you think that these reservists are really being brought together out of a response of NATO? The official response on this is that these reservists are based upon a security document about a year ago, which stipulated the need for Canada and other NATO countries to prepare against potential threats, either natural disaster, quote unquote, or threat from some type of need for a conventional army as a prelude to a potential nuclear engagement. I guess nuclear engagement, they're referring to Russia or China, whoever nuclear adversary that NATO is facing. My question to you is that do you think that this 300,000 citizen soldiers, as they stipulate, is regarding a NATO threat, or do you think these 300,000 soldiers are, that NATO is being used as a pretext to, out of a Canadian concern about Trump and a stated desire to annex Canada? I know that yesterday, and again, this is being recorded in mid-December. Yesterday, the Trump administration, which is not being broadcast in the CBC and major Canadian media, announced a new security doctrine in which Trump aims to control the whole of the Western Hemisphere, hearkening back to the so-called Monroe Doctrine of the 19th century, that he wants the whole of the Western Hemisphere controlled by American MAGA interests towards a prelude to, I guess, control of the whole world. This again is a page straight out of Mein Kampf. It's a page straight out of the National Socialist or Nazi agenda to control the world based upon the vested interests of a dictatorial authoritarian power. Again, the implied context of this sought Trump desire to control the Western Hemisphere, and we see that happening right now when apparently today, this is breaking news as well, Trump decided that he was going to seize a oil tanker. Again, he's apparently down there because of some so-called drug threat by Venezuela, but everybody knows, who are the experts, knows that the drugs that are flowing in the United States are flowing mostly from Mexico and fentanyl from China and not Venezuela. Venezuela is an extreme minor player, but he's using this as a pretext to now seize oil tankers, which is his real target in all this, which is the fact that Venezuela has the largest reserves of oil, even larger than apparently Saudi Arabia, and he wants that control for himself. The Trump foreign policy agenda is not idealism that he wants to be kicked aside. It's a transactional foreign policy straight out of the National Socialist or Nazi playbook, which is trying to expand and control countries for national resource control. And again, this Department of War, the Senate Department of Defense, is also a playbook out of the Nazi agenda, which basically is trying to focus on, rather than the defense being or the army being there for a defensive purpose, which has been America's focus since the Cold War and even before. The focus is now apparently the use of the American military by manifesting its named Department of War as an offensive basis to carry out an imperialist agenda, a fascist agenda against other countries. So the question today is that, as a Canadian decision maker seeing all this, you don't really want to say that you're calling up, in my view, 300 reservists as a possible wedge against American military control of Canada by an invasion. That's the question, I have 300,000 soldiers is just the number which I had bantered around for what I would call a Royal Canadian defense, territorial defense, focus on defending Canada from the threat of an annexation. 300,000 is the exact number that I've been bantering around. So when I saw this 300,000 after, discussing my concerns about U.S. annexation and the need for Canadians to be prepared for any threat of annexation, and again, these annexation threats have become more bolder. I saw some strange video on YouTube where Trump was apparently eyeing, invading Saskatchewan and, Alberta and all these kind of places. I saw some strange video where he seemed to be amused by that. Oh, well, maybe we can, control Western Canada and then use the control of Western Canada to control all of Canada. So, one should appreciate that, Canadian decision makers may be seeing these type of aggressive belligerent threats. Don't want to say that, 300,000 reservists are being brought together out of concern about U.S. annexation, and instead the 300,000 reservists are being called up because of the need to protect Canada from, any potential global conflict with Russia. So the question today is that, do you think that these 300,000 reservists are being called up really for the official line, which is to support NATO, or do you think that the 300,000 reservists are Canadian response to the new ambitious fascist agenda of the Trump administration to control the whole of the Western Hemisphere, and by implication, Canada as part of the Western Hemisphere, and based upon the stated express goals of Trump to potentially militarily annex Greenland and to economically coerce Canada into annexation? We all know that Trump doesn't want to renew CUSMA. Trump wanted CUSMA, but Trump too wants to let CUSMA go so that he can use his executive power to override the U.S. Congress, to override state interests, and to then, further try to coerce Canada towards annexation. If that does not work, one can imagine that military annexation is on his mind, because he's never really officially ruled out military conquest. He's been less open about that relative to Greenland, but again, I've seen all sorts of reports online. Some of them may be credible, they may not be credible, some may be very well credible, but if you are any Canadian who's aware of the War of 1812 and the way in which the Americans invaded Canada at that time, which was a complete violation of international law, then the War of 1812 was in the minds of many Canadians who are aware about that war, and that we cannot afford ourselves as a Canada to underestimate the belligerence of the United States, not specifically the Trump administration regime, in seeking to potentially, to manifest their desire to control Canada. We all know that Trump's on and on going on about the 51st state agenda. He's been less explicit than he was before during when Trudeau was in office, but we all know that he's continued to stay this even with Carney. And so the question is again, are these 300,000 reservists a response to NATO, or are they a response to the need to protect Canadian interests from an undefended border being way too much of a potential opportunity for the Trump regime to pursue a fascist expansionist agenda against Canada? So that's the question today. What do you think these 300,000 soldiers focus is, these citizen soldiers? What do you think about this? Thanks for watching another edition of the Ottawa Market YouTube channel.